Watch me ride.
So, I've been vlogging now for half a decade, and when I started out, vlogging cameras they weren't really a thing, you know. I had to try using an iPhone strapped to my chest. I did it. I got, I think, on my first 100 subscribers that way, or something like that. I can't remember the course of events, but anyway. The first vlogging camera, proper camera that was good, I used was a Drift Stealth, the original Stealth, which was a brick on the side of your head. But it had removable batteries, it had a plug-in microphone, it had really dumb ideas of this waterproof, well not waterproof, this rubber boot you had to stick on the back when you used the microphone and stuff, but it worked. It worked. You know, over the years GoPro came out, people use GoPros, and the quality of things has been upped and upped and upped, and things have been getting better and better. And I'm going to bring us up to the point of the GoPro Hero 4 and the Drift Ghost S. The Ghost S is the camera that I used. At this point, you're dealing with cameras which you can put batteries in, you can plug microphones in them, same for the GoPro, and you know, they're reasonably good. Now, the battery life on the GoPros is appalling, and I mean appalling. From what I've heard from people that use them, you know, an hour from a battery is about what you can expect at most. The Drift, 2 to 3. So that's why I've always used Drift. I've always found that the fit and form, the actual use of the camera for a vlogging camera, the Drift Ghost S, is the best vlogging camera that was made. Okay, the quality isn't up there with the GoPro, but for a camera that you take out of the box, stick it to the side of your helmet and put a microphone in it, the Ghost S was always, and still is, the best vlogging camera in my opinion. You know, people who are using GoPros are quite often using these power kits, so you can plug power into them as well, and you need adapters, and yeah, it gets great audio eventually and it gets great visuals, but you have all this just funk all over your helmet just to make it work. Whereas in the Drift is the sweetest, cleanest setup that there was. So then the Hero 5 comes out, and a lot of people get it, and then they realise there's all sorts of problems as to why that's not a perfect camera, and people would rather use the Hero 4. And the Hero 4 really is hard to find these days, because when these companies bring out a new camera, they try and kill the last one, even though it may not have the same features. So if you want a Hero 4, they're not entirely easy to get hold of, and they are, I mean, I found one online for sale, and it was only about 50 quid cheaper than the Hero 5. The Drift Ghost 4K. It's a good little compact camera, and it is in 4K, and it does produce nice video. But for a vlogging camera, it really isn't that good, because the problem is the audio just isn't quite there. It's close, but it's still not quite there. It's got a built-in battery. Now, it does have a side-mounted battery, because they were supposed to produce these batteries and screens and accessories to make it a modular camera. Well, I don't actually see Drift selling any of those things, and it's been months. So that's why I can't use the 4K as my main vlogging camera. I tried, and I couldn't get on with a 140-degree field of view, but I also just couldn't get on with the fact that I didn't have the ability to stick another battery in it, which I do long rides, I need to be able to do that. And then I found myself doing videos where on one way of the trip I'd be using the 4K, and on the return trip I'd be using the S, and then I'd be like, why am I not just using the S for the whole trip? Because I still think, as I say, the S is the best camera. But unfortunately, like with GoPro, when they brought the 5 out, they stopped selling the 4. Drift stopped selling the Ghost S. And I'm pissed off at them about that, because it isn't really a competitor to the 4K, because it's different. When my current 2 cameras die, or I feel like I absolutely have to upgrade, I don't know what camera I'm going to use, because no one makes a vlogging camera that works. You will have seen Jake recently looked at SJ Cam, and he mentioned in that the fact that we've been talking about this for years. This has been sort of our running discussion for like half a decade. We and Jake have known each other for a very long time, and the other night we were having this discussion that was, what happened? Like, vlogging cameras are getting better and better, and all of a sudden it's like they were like, no, screw you, and they just made them terrible. They're just not, well, not terrible, that's too strong. They just made them not as good. too many problems. So if you get into vlogging now, what are your options? Well, no one's actually using 4K, so forget that. You don't need that. All you need is 1080p, 60 FPS, a plug-in mic, and a removable battery so you can put more batteries in it. That's the things we need. Fit and form, I would take, if a GoPro worked as well as I find that this drift does with battery life and stuff, I'd switch to GoPro, I'll be honest. But it doesn't. The Drift S is still the best camera, and really the Ghost 4K is also the next best thing, because you can plug stuff into it, a microphone port, and it's waterproof-ish, or should I say water resistant, and it's an easy setup, out the box. This is the point, an out the box setup that you don't have to faff around with a lot. Oh, where was I? I'm completely throwing myself. Yeah, I'm basically getting to the point of like, what camera would you use now? The GoPro 5, no, and you can't get the 4. The 4K, it's a good little camera, but it's not as good as the S, which you can no longer get. Sony producer camera, which actually looks really good. Unfortunately, the problem with that one is that you can't actually plug a microphone into it that easily when it's in the case. It gets in the way of the mounting system or something. People find ways around all of these problems, so you know, this can be quite a bone of contention, cameras, and people start getting into arguments about, you know, you get GoPro fanboys that stand there and say, no, you're wrong, and it's like, well, I've been doing this for half a decade. I do know what I'm talking about. I probably have more experience in using helmet-mounted cameras than a lot of people because I've been doing it for so long. I could design the perfect helmet-mounted camera. It wouldn't be that difficult. But then vlogging isn't the thing that these companies are really making the cameras for necessarily, but I do feel that if they manage to incorporate it into their design, they'd be onto a winner, because as no one now makes the perfect vlogging camera, if they made one, it's the one that everyone would use. And so many of these companies come close. They're developing a camera, they could have done it, and then at the last hurdle, they somehow managed to completely ruin it. It's literally as simple as that. We've gone backwards. We had our Concorde moment. Some would say that it's the Hero 4, some will say that it's the Ghost S, but we're going backwards now, and it means that, as I say, if you need to start, if you want to start vlogging now, motovlogging with, you know, audio in your helmet, you're going to have to go around some funky ways of doing it. I mean, of course you could do something like have a separate audio setup, but then you have a problem, which is that lapel microphones tend to be very sensitive. I've tried all sorts of different methods of having completely separate audio to the camera, because I thought about doing that for the 4K, but then it was the 140-degree field of view. I couldn't get on with it. A lot of people said they didn't mind it, but I didn't like the video quality. I like this. I know right now I have nice blue skies, nice green trees. I know it's nice and wide. It feels quite natural to watch. It feels like you might be on my shoulder, as it were. It doesn't feel like you're looking through a camera necessarily, and that is why the Ghost S is brilliant. See, all they had to do, all Drift had to do, was make the Ghost S exactly as it is. You don't even have to make it any smaller, and just up the video quality in it. Just make it a much higher bit rate. So the 1080p 60 FPS was much clearer and much sharper, just like the GoPro. And all they have to do that is change the sensor. And I have said this to Drift, and you know, obviously they have, their customer base means that what we want is not important enough to make sure that they do that. They have a different motive to why they need to make their cameras, and they do them the way they do. It's fair enough. You know, I have pissed them off in the past by talking honestly about what I think of their cameras, but I have to remind people that it's within the context of vlogging. All the problems that the 4K did have, as I say, have been solved, other than hardware issues, like the fact that there is only a 140-degree field of view, and there's nothing you can do to change that. I'm a bit lost. Me and Jake, we were having this conversation, I say, the other night, and I just came to this epiphany, which is like, what happens when my cameras die? Like, I can't just go and buy another camera now. I'd have to like search and try and get an old Ghost S or a GoPro Hero 4 and then go through all the troubles of having to have extra battery systems and all of the guff that goes with that. I mean, So as I say, the perfect camera would be for me, like the Ghost S, with better video quality. And one other actual thing to add into it, well maybe two other things, is Bluetooth. So we can have Bluetooth headsets connected to them for use as a microphone, because that would mean that people have sceners and stuff, which lots of people do. You could just have that instead of having the wired mic. That would mean you could use a waterproof door on it, and it would be completely waterproof. Awesome setup. Unfortunately, that's not part of the specs. I think there's also a place to go back to the POV style of cameras. Now, if you don't know what the POVs were, they were like a giant brick in your pocket that was the recording sort of innards and a battery, and it had a massive battery in it, and everything you needed was in this block that went in your jacket pocket. Then you had a thin cable go up to your helmet, and this camera which just clipped onto the side of your helmet. So the camera on your helmet was just a tiny camera on the end of a lead. That's perfectly acceptable to me. I'm not, you know, there is inherent problems with that, such as, well, I know someone who used to use one of those, fell on it and broke their ribs. Was that Sven that did that? Because Sven used to use the old POVs. And that would mean that you can have a camera pretty much as big as you like. You can have a massive battery in it. You can have all the memory that you would need. And it's like a normal camera, but the difference is that the camera lens, the unit of the camera and the lens, is on a longer piece of cable than being directly mounted inside the body of the camera. It also means that if one part gets damaged, you can replace the other. The very last concern, it seems, to any of these companies is audio. You know, the built-in mics, they are never going to work very well, whether it's on a GoPro or on a drift. It just, wind is wind. You can't get round wind. But when it comes to the plugged-in mics, the external mics, they don't seem to think too far into it. Like the original settings on the 4K seemed as if they were planning to use that for I don't know, interview work maybe? It was way too loud, and it was clearly not tested. Not even once. Because if it had been one attempt to try and use it for the purpose that vloggers use it, you would have just been like, well, that's unusable, we need to change that. And with feedback that I gave them, they did update the firmware, and it got the camera to a point that it was kind of right. But it kind of needs to go slightly lower, to be honest with you. But the reason I haven't pursued that and chased that is because there's very little point for me, because I don't really like the footage that comes out of the thing. Yeah, I still work with drift, but not really, because I don't really have anything I can promote. I only promote things I fully believe in, and for my uses, what I can promote as a vlogging camera, it's this one that's on my head, and they don't even sell it anymore. It's frustrating because I pointed out a lot of these things to them, but as I say, I must also understand that it's because they don't make cameras for vloggers. They make cameras for multiple uses, and maybe the 4K works perfectly for what their target was. It's just like the ultimate case of close but no cigar. They've all been so close and then fucked it. I have offered my consultancy, as it were, on this for free. I've never wanted anything in return. I've just wanted the camera to be as good as it can be because I want to use it. If there's a camera company out there that actually want to make the ultimate vlogging camera, whether you're Sony, Drift, GoPro, Garmin, or one of these Chinese companies, any of them, and I know it's very unlikely anyone's going to see this to get back to me. If you want consultancy on it, if you want me to give you feedback and tell you how to make a camera that will work perfectly for vlogging and help you test it and develop it to the point that you can release it and be proud of that camera, that on the day it's released it is the best vlogging camera that has ever been made overall, contact me. Business email is on my channel description. I don't know, but what I do know is I just hope that my two Ghost S's last until someone brings out a camera that just works. And it's so simple. Removable battery, really good quality at 1080p 60 fps, plug-in mic with a really good range of sensitivities on it. Have it so it's so sensitive that it's too low and you have to go like 20 settings up before you get to where it's okay for vlogging. That's what we need. We need adjustability, and that's something that can be in the software. Get a good microphone. I don't mind spending £30 on an external mic if it's a high quality one. I don't want to be able to go and buy a £10 external mic that's clearly a higher quality microphone, but it's just not compatible with the camera. I'm very interested to know, what camera do you use, what audio setup do you use, what power packs and stuff do you have to run on it. I want to know about your setups, because people ask me about mine. You know what mine is, but none of you can have it unless you can find one second hand, and I can't have it again. So yeah, not exactly the most positive one, but it's important. We need someone to make a camera that just works for our needs.